Good morning, and thank you very much for joining. My name is Alex Greene, and our research group looked at the differences in load values between 38 and 42 millimeter humeral liner sizes in reverse total shoulder arthroplasty when measured with a wireless load sensing device. Here are our disclosures. So, tension in reverse total shoulder arthroplasty is a very subjective matter. This is something typically learned by surgeons during fellowship training and is determined via subjective feel during the range of motion assessment and reduction phase of the procedure. There are no current targets or a way to define optimal tension, and if we look at the literature and the Australian registry, we can see that the most common remaining complications in reverse total shoulder arthroplasty are tension related. Specifically, if a shoulder is too tight, this can lead to acromial stress fractures. If it is too loose, this can lead to instability. However, if the shoulder is just right, the patient might be able to achieve optimal range of motion and need the least amount of force to initiate movement. So in this study, we measured tension with the VeriSense for Equinox device. This is a wireless humeral liner trial manufactured by Orthosensor. And this sensor contains load cells and a Bluetooth chip that communicates with a computer during the case, where the sensor substitutes for the standard humeral liner trial and gives the doctor a real-time point of contact and load value as the range of motion assessment part of the procedure is performed. Previous work with this sensor showed that a dynamic range of motion assessment is very important, as a loose and a tight shoulder may have similar values when initially reduced, and it is when the shoulder is brought through in range of motion that differences are observed. We also believe that there likely exists a sweet spot between stability and mobility. In this specific study, 10 surgeons performed a total of 37 reverse total shoulder replacements with a single implant system. And the doctors were able to select and determine final liner size and buildup of the reverse construct based on their subjective feel. The doctors were provided with two humeral liner sizes, 38 and 42 millimeters, and then intraoperative load values were recorded during a dynamic range of motion assessment in the trialing phase. We then analyzed the load data for differences and compared the two cohorts using two-tailed unpaired t-tests. To ensure a consistent range of motion evaluation between the doctors, we had them all perform the same assessment, which consisted of 4 dynamic motions, a maximum internal and external rotation at 0, 45, and 90 degrees of abduction, then a flexion extension maximum, and then 3 static positions consisting of above the head, behind the back, and across the body. Here is one of the surgeons running through this range of motion assessment during the procedure. You can see as he changes the rotation and abduction that the load value changes on the screen and the point of contact translates. So what did we see? This is a graph for the 38 millimeter liner size, and in total we ended up using 21 38 millimeter sensors and 16 42 millimeter sensors. In blue, you can see the average maximum loads observed, and in gray, you see the average minimum loads with the whisker plots representing the standard deviations. So the vast majority of the loads fell between 10 and 40 pounds, but the standard deviations were very high, with the maximum recorded load values exceeding 90 pounds. And so these largest values tended to happen in elevation and abduction, and also at end range of motion and rotation. When comparing the liner sizes, we can see that the trends hold relatively consistent between the two. However, the load values are significantly higher with the 42 millimeter liner size. Analyzing for statistical differences, we can see that all of the internal-external rotation maneuvers were significantly higher in the 42 millimeter cohort, as well as the behind the back static position. So what do our results tell us? The variability between patients, surgeons, and different liner sizes is high, with 42 millimeter liner sizes exhibiting significantly higher loads than smaller ones. Now, this may be due to a selection bias, as surgeons tend to use larger liner sizes in males or larger patients. As well, we observed that the high standard deviations may be due to the load values rapidly increasing as the tissues become inelastic and in range of motion. Conclusions from this study show that this sensor proves useful in observing intraoperative load values in reverse shoulder arthroplasty in an in vivo setting. The larger liner sizes do tend to exhibit larger load values, but keep in mind that this is initial clinical data on a very small subset of cases, and we will need to look at the future data and stratify by patient demographics, as well as controlling for the effects of anesthesia, surgeon technique, and other factors to ultimately see if there is an optimal load range that exists for a given patient. Thank you very much.